and Mike will do the pledge of the flag for us on our behalf. And then I'm going to ask that we remain standing for a couple of moments after the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, undivided, with liberty and justice for all.
So if we could just remain standing for a minute, I want to take a minute or two of silence and pay homage to the people that lost their lives on January 6th, and pray to God that we don't face anything like that again in our lifetime. So please take a moment or two. Thank you. Okay, so the first thing we have tonight is a public hearing on a 90-day moratorium on issuing building permits and inspections. So I will, before we get started with that, I always forget to welcome the public that might be out there watching tonight on YouTube, and hope that if you have comments that you want to chat in, please do so. And we welcome you and glad you're with us. So back to the moratorium. There's been some developments since our last meeting, which was December 21st, when we set the date for this moratorium, due to the fact that our code enforcement contract was running out with the town of Victor at the end of December. So there's been some developments in the meantime, but we'll get to those in a minute. We're going to go ahead with the public hearing for the public's benefit. And Pam, if you will read the public notice.
The Village of Victor Board of Trustees has scheduled a public hearing for January 19th, 2021 at 7 p.m. for the sole purpose of determining if the village board should enact a local law imposing a 90-day moratorium on building permits and inspections, or until such time the Village of Victor has a code enforcement officer in place, whichever period of time is shorter. This public hearing will be held via Zoom and live streamed on YouTube. Comments can be heard via YouTube.
Thank you, Pam. So I will ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike,
I'll second it.
second by Michelle. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? None. So first, for the board's information, which I think you know now, in the meantime, I was able to contact Ontario County, and we do have code enforcement assistance through the county for the foreseeable future to get us through this time period until we get someone hired. So obviously, at least in my mind, and I think in your minds, that probably negates the need for this public hearing. But it was really too late to kind of cancel it without going through the proper channels to do so. So I would, at this time, ask for any comments from the board on the situation or questions that you might have. And if there aren't any from the board, then I would give the public a chance to speak if they have any comments to chat in.
Nobody's on, Gary.
Okay. So the long story short is that we have the help, and hopefully that will get us through. So
Gary, have they started yet? Has
Yeah.
somebody from the county started?
yes. Yeah, he's actually, his name is Terry Saxby. He is a code enforcement officer for the county. There are two in that department. And he is assisting us while he also performs his regular duties through the county. And he is here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, just like Marty was, which I think makes it a little better for the office and for the public. And we are able to utilize up to 40 hours of time that the county provides to us free of charge. And then after that, we would have to, craft an agreement with the county and pay for the compensation for him. So at this point, I think he's doing a good job. I talked with JT briefly. He agrees. And I'm really thankful we have him to get us through this time period.
Is there any limit to how long he may continue helping us out while we're hiring somebody?
No specific limit. I made it pretty clear to Tom Harvey, his boss, and to Terry that, we're not sure how long the process will take to get somebody hired and on board, but we expect at least a couple of months. So I think they're understanding of that. I'll get to the hiring process a little bit later in the meeting, but we're moving along with that as well. So far, so good. It sure is a load off everybody's shoulders to have Terry helping us out. And he's a very experienced code enforcement officer, been with the county for 27 years.
So I guess I just don't understand the 40 hours. So that's about 7 days, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that's 3.5 weeks. And we're already into it. So I guess we need to know what the county's going to charge us.
Well, it's going to be pretty much what we were paying for Marty.
Okay. So,
Yeah, because they got to cover the cost of his salary and his benefits, just like the town did with Marty.
okay.
All right. And again, we'll move along with the process, the hiring process. And hopefully it won't take, too long to get this going. But even after we hire somebody, Terry's agreed to kind of help facilitate the training of this person to get them a little bit up to speed before, their boots are really on the ground. So, anyways, if nobody else has any other comments about the code enforcement situation, and in particular about the moratorium, I know how I'm going to vote. So as to whether or not we will impose this 90-day moratorium, I'll ask for a motion.
Do we have a motion to close the hearing? Do we have to close the public hearing first?
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Carol. Thank you
Sure.
for correcting me on that. So I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Motion
I'll
by
second it.
Carol, second by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Thank you, Carol. So now as to our vote as to whether or not to impose the moratorium, I'll ask for a motion.
So before we do it, do we have to make a motion?
I
I mean, we don't have to make a motion.
I don't think we do.
No, I guess you're right, Mike. That's fine.
If no one I don't want to make a motion. I certainly don't want to step on my peers, but if no one wants to make a motion,
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. There isn't a need for the motion. We could go through the motions and make a motion and vote no, but there's not a need to do it, I guess. Thanks, Reed. Okay, then there won't be a moratorium issued, thankfully. And we can move on to privilege of the floor. So tonight we have with us Brian Emelson, Director of Parks and Recreation. Brian's here to talk to us a little bit about the dog park proposed for Harlan Fisher Park. If you remember a couple of meetings ago, I brought that up and wanted you to think about that. And if you have any preliminary questions or comments for Brian. So Brian, welcome tonight. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Mayor Haddon, members of the Victor Village Board of Trustees, Reed, Pam. Those of you that are playing at home, it's great to see everybody healthy and well tonight, I hope. everybody's doing okay, and I would far more enjoy being, seeing you in person. But hopefully we're headed in the right direction with this pandemic, and we can all get back together again soon. But thank you for your time tonight. I won't take too much of it, but I did want to give you some background and answer any questions that you might have regarding that. But just some history. The concept of a community dog park came out of the 2019 Parks and Recreation Master Plan update, as Gary probably told you previously. When we surveyed residents of the town and village and asked a specific question related to when planning for our future parks, what are the top 5 recreational needs for the next 5 to 10 years? The concept of dog park ranked 4th out of 12 recreational facility types to choose from in our survey. And this was behind trails and bikeways, a splash park, and a nature center, but was also seen as more important to our residents than items including athletic fields, lodges, and picnic shelters, and children's playgrounds. Now, that's not to say that those items aren't important to our residents, but we wanted to get a firm hand on understanding what our residents' priorities were. And dog parks was certainly one of their priorities that they had high on the list. The Parks and Recreation Citizens Advisory Committee that Mayor Haddon is a liaison from the village on, and also has village resident representation, then took up the subject when planning for capital projects in 2020 for projects slated for 2021. With their recommendation and some input from me, the town board has allocated $20,000 in the Capital Parks Improvement Fund for this year for design and public input towards a future dog park in the community. And this is the fund, the Capital Parks Improvement Fund is the fund that's derived from the fee in lieu of parkland, if you will, through the planning process for homes and subdivisions in our community. So it's not a fund that's derived from taxes, but it's derived from a recreation fee, a set aside, if you will, to be utilized for new projects, repair and replacement of old park projects, or the acquisition of land if you choose. Previous funds have been used for places like Dryer Road Park, Victor Municipal Park, and some of the improvements to other parks in our system. That being said, there were 2 potential sites that were identified during the master planning process for a dog park. One was at what's known as Village on the Park, which is a subdivision, large subdivision that's located off of County Road 9, just off Duck Hollow Road. And the other location was at Harlan Fisher Park within the village. At this time, the Citizens Advisory Committee has discussed the matter. They feel currently that Harlan Fisher Park is a preferred location of the 2 locations due to its proximity to the village, the more densely populated village, within walking distances to Main Street, and also that in that park, we've delayed a lot of previous improvements to Harlan Fisher Park because much of the improvements in that park were going to be determined based on additional land holdings adjacent to the park that were going to be developed for a subdivision that you well know as the Glacy project. So we delayed previous improvements planned for that park because of the Glacy project still going through the development process with not only the town, but also the village. Now that that project can move forward, we'd like to make some improvements to that park like we've done with adding the swings to the playground since the last master plan, adding the walking and pedestrian village, bridge to the playground, thinning out some of the trees and the underbrush in that park, adding some additional picnic areas with improvements to the turf. But we're looking at the dog park for that as being a next logical potential project based on our residents' input. Just some history with dog parks, since we don't have one currently in the community. The dog parks typically involve a small or large dog area that's demised by a fence as well as signage. There's typically a fence or gate system to allow people to enter and exit a dog park, so it's just not open, has some way of closing it off. Some dog parks that I visited in going through the master plan project in other communities, some have agility courses, which have small structures in there for the dogs to learn some skills, or the dog owners to take them through agility courses. All of the dog parks that I've toured, and I've never managed a dog park in my career, but all of the ones that I visit have some type of water source for dogs for drinking water. Some dog parks that I visited were flat. Some had undulating terrain. Some had a water source that included a natural body of water like a creek or a stormwater pond that dogs could utilize. Many of the dog parks will have some type of keying in system or fobbing system that allows you not only to control who's utilizing the dog park if you have a pass or a user fee, which many do, that's either tied to that key or that gate system, whether it's a code that you punch in that you're given at the time of paying a registration fee, or a fobbing in system. I've discussed also with my staff tying it to some type of dog licenses that are issued within the municipality as some way of tracking use of that. The surfaces of dog parks typically tend to be either grass or asphalt or some type of poured in place rubber matting surface. The current timeline for this project, based on the town's commitment to do design this year, we currently have a moratorium on capital projects and hiring seasonal and full-time staff within the town for the first quarter. So I'm not able to start this project like we typically would by doing some of the soft paperwork stuff in the January and February period. It's just a nuance with the COVID pandemic and with town finances. But I anticipate going forward with hiring a design firm for some landscaping and some engineering, doing some public input in April and May, so that we can have a refined design by the fall. Depending on what kind of feedback we get from residents on the location, the sizing of the park, the items they'd like to see in amenities within a dog park, so that we can seek funding through the town budget for 2022 construction. So prior to moving forward and discussing it in the Citizens Advisory Committee, I wanted to kind of have a pulse check. We did get one comment since your last meeting when Gary had it on the agenda. We did get one comment from a resident regarding to how we would locate the park within the site and how we would prevent children from entering or exiting the dog park that visit the playground. Not all parks that I looked at, dog parks, had playgrounds in that park particular, but many of them did. And so we would come up with a way, whether it was through natural in the design process, through whether it's just fencing them in or having a way to steer the dog users that say drive to the park towards the dog park. Currently, the way that the master plan is laid out, the dog park is called out to be in the northern portion on the property line that would abut the future Galassi project. So it's called out in that location specifically because it's flatter. There probably need to be some clearing, but there's also no recreational amenities in that portion of the park proper that we would have to take offline to bring this online. So with convenience to the parking lot, and then also there is a way to tap into an existing water line that would be in the park there as we move forward. So that's where I'm at, and I'm open for questions, comments, further discussion.
Anybody on the board?
I think it's a great idea.
I think so too. I walked down there today to see, what was, the area. And the area that you mentioned looks like the logical place to put something like that. Across the creek.
Just Brian, the dog park that I'm most familiar with is in Shortsville. And I know that since they've put it in, I mean, the utilization of the park is much higher than it was in the past. There does seem to be a need. My only concern would be if I had lived right next to the dog park. Have you heard any complaints with people about noise and dogs barking? And would there be, in the evening, is there some cutoff point when people wouldn't be bringing dogs into the park? Is that an issue?
To answer the parks that are operated at dawn to dusk. So we gate that specific park. Sure, you could still access it from the East Parkway entrance versus driving in, but we would follow specific hours. We could adopt some type of different hours for this particular amenity in the park. The lodges, we operate at slightly different hours because they're open. They have rental times in the evening. So we have a scheduling and a reservation process. So those lodges are in use. But so I don't anticipate necessarily lighting this dog park, if you will. So it may not be as attractive during the evening hours when the sun is down, when it's dark, if you will. But that's something that we would take up during the public input process and obtain feedback from residents as to that concern, and that would need to be addressed before any type of final design is accepted.
Brian, when you talk about reaching out to residents, obviously any resident could be listening tonight or at a town board meeting when you're discussing this preliminary plan. But aside from that, you wouldn't be probably reaching out until you have a plan, or when do you anticipate, opening it up to the public for their comments?
I think realistically, we'll try to open it up this summer because I want to be able to get it, have some firm construction costs for the town's budget process in August and September, So I'd like to do some public input this summer. So we have an idea of like how large, how how many users that we could count on, whether that's, I don't see it as being as long of a process as the whole master plan took, the 12 to 14 month process that took. I definitely want feedback from any residents that surround the park, just like we did when we did improvements to the playground out there. Possibly send out a public meeting announcement through folks that have dog licenses, would be one of our natural interest areas. But we're not going to rush the process. If more input's required, then we can obtain to move forward with construction in 2022. We can delay that. We want to make sure we have a good project, first and foremost.
Sounds good. Anybody have any other questions or comments for Brian? Brian, I really appreciate you speaking with us tonight and giving us the background and so forth necessary and keeping us in the loop, because we need to be in the loop. And I'm sorry John Turner's not with us tonight because of a family issue, but I'm sure we can get him up to speed and get his comments, which are always valuable and practical. And going down the road, I guess just one last question. What is the expectation of the village in this process?
Understanding of the project, support for the project when we move forward. If there's any public, when it becomes time to engage the public, the village board should feel comfortable coming to those public input sessions. And if they'd like to have a role in that process, helping me being eyes and ears. So we have Parks and Recreation Citizens Advisory Committees on the first Tuesday of every month. And so, but people don't have to wait. If you hear something out there, like the woman that contacted me after Gary had it in the previous meeting discussion, I'm around every day. They can call, I can, input's open. It's a fully public process. And I want to make sure that the public's involved, because those are the end users. We don't want to build anything that we don't have solid community support, whether it's a question or a fear, or something that receives widespread appeal. We're just getting started. Like I said, typically we'd be farther into this process, but because of the unique nature of the pause, because of the COVID pandemic. One thing I will add is we've never seen the amount of use in our park facilities that we've seen since this pandemic. I mean, so this would be another amenity in our park system that would benefit through activities, challenges that we're certainly currently undergoing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I think it would in particular benefit village residents because, the closest proximity, I think would be the biggest users, but there's no guarantee of that, but that seems like a logical thing. So, and going down the road, I know you'll keep us informed, and you can use me as a liaison to do that as well. And if nobody else has any other comments tonight, I really appreciate you being here with us.
Well, I really appreciate your time. You've been great partners in past projects, and I really appreciate being in front of you tonight. Hopefully next time we'll have made some progress with this project. Maybe we can all even be together in person.
Yeah, maybe we can do punch and cookies or something, right? All right.
Nice.
Thanks very much, Brian.
I never thought in 30 years as a public servant that I'd ever miss being at town and village board meetings, but I sure do miss being.
Really.
All right, thanks a lot. And if you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, we'd love to have you, but don't think you have to. So,
Okay, thank you, Mayor Haddon. Thank you,
All right.
Christie. Thanks,
Thanks,
Pam.
Brent.
Good night.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
okay, moving on to the clerk's report.
I have a resolution to accept the meeting minutes from our January 4th meeting.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike, second by Carol. Any comments or questions on the minutes from January 4th? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
And I have a resolution to accept the payment of bills, abstract number 16.
Motion for the bills.
Make the motion.
Motion by Bob,
I can second that.
second by Michelle. Questions or comments on the abstract? I did raise the question to Diane about the invoice numbers were like 948 and, 2 or 3 more of them. And it was about the tax liability to the village for like the U of R, or not U of R, the URA parking lot and over by the library and the several other pieces of village property. And Diane said that's as a result of the creation of the fire district that we are now paying property tax on those parcels for fire protection. So that answered that question. I do remember JT talking about that a while back because he went over and questioned over at Town Hall on it as well. Okay, Pam.
Voting.
Okay, so any other comments on the abstract? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
And I have a resolution for the 2021 town fuel management system contract. As you know, the DPW and the code enforcement we get gas from the town highway department. So they charge us what the cost of the gas is plus a 6% administrative fee, they call it, or 6 cents, 6 cents on top of the cost of the gallons. And that's been the same for the last few years. So this is.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike,
Second it.
second by Bob. Any comments on the 2021 town fuel management system contract resolution? Nice to know that that the 6 cents hasn't gone up. And that's all I'll say because I don't want to spur any bad things for us. No other comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
And the Victor Farmington Library would like to put a banner up across Maple Avenue for the month of February promoting Love Your Library Month. So, and they've submitted all of this paperwork that we're looking for. And I talked to JT about it because February typically is a wintry, windy, month. And we've only been putting them up for 2 weeks at a time. And he said he was fine with it. And if there's a problem, I told her we would be taking down the banner.
Is there a motion for the banner across Maple Avenue for Victor Farmington Library?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Michelle,
I'll second.
second by Carol. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? None.
And I have nothing else. The caucus is tomorrow night, 7 o'clock at the town hall.
Thanks, Pam. Director of Public Works, obviously John Turner's not with us tonight, but I'll give you a quick update. John's dad, as you, I think, know, is not in good health. He's been battling with a pretty serious illness. And John is back and forth from Prattsburgh to back here on a regular basis, but he's been kind of there on an extended period lately to try and help his dad out and his mom. And that's probably going to continue for the foreseeable future here. He did tell me that he wants me to know that all of you to know that Jeff King is in charge when he's not here. So if for some reason you need to contact who's in charge at the DPW, it's Jeff King. We can provide you his cell phone number if you need it. I do have it. And also he wanted me to tell you that he will be back in town periodically. Like I think he's coming back on Thursday, this Thursday, and maybe around a little bit on Friday, but then probably back down to Prattsburgh. So, you know, I wish John and his family the best, and I'm sure that all of you do as well. He informed me before we were able to get the help from the county code enforcement. He told me that the ESL project is still moving along, as you probably can see when you drive by, and they are using third-party inspectors to keep that project going. And John, being the man he is, informed them, you make sure that documentation comes back to the village, and they are very much aware of that and will follow through on that. I think so far things have been handled very well through that project on Marty's end when he was involved and on ESL's end. So far so good with that. And you probably know, but just in case you don't, because I think it was last meeting, Bright Raven, as John had told us, the water line is in, it passed the test, so they've been issued their C of O officially for their building now. So they're good to go, and then we'll be looking for some kind of plan from them in the future for what they want to do with the rest of the property, including some improvements to the roadway. Trustee reports, anybody?
Well, I don't have a report per se, but I went over the documentation Wes sent us. And I just want to get a grasp on something before we bring him back, but I guess I'm totally lost on this. So I've read this from A to Z, and I thought we were doing away with the term Architectural Preservation Review Board.
I know that's been discussed, certainly.
So he keeps doing work that incorporates the term.
Well, I've got to admit, Mike, I have not gone over that document like you have yet, and I need to do it sooner than later, but I don't have an answer right now until I look it over. And
well, like I don't have a problem being point of contact for him, but I want to make sure we're on the same page. So I didn't like the way the meeting went last time. I thought we talked in circles for a long time, and now we've got this work product. So, I mean, I'm not trying to impose my will, but like I said, I left the meeting believing that the term Architectural Preservation Review Board was being taken out of the code. And, you know, Wes's words were, the planning board is the Architectural Preservation Review Board. You just write the code correctly, is the way I understood it.
right, I mean, again, without looking at the full context of it, I understand what you're saying. I just don't know if it really makes that big a difference as long as we're delineating, if you will, or designating the planning board as the Architectural Review Board. Then seems like there wouldn't be any confusion, but if everybody else feels like we should take it out, then we should do that. Anybody have any comments?
Well, yeah, I guess I can see how it could be confusing for people if you say that there's a review board, even though it is the planning board. Yeah, maybe you just take that out of there and, like I said, keep the planning board. Yeah, surprised, I guess, to see that still in there as well.
Well, to Mike's point, I'm on page 2 and page 3, and there are many references of APRB throughout just the first, say, 3 or 4 pages. So is it something where, he just needs to kind of change out, the APRB for the term planning? Is it like a semantics thing where we just have to change the former out to more of the planning board now?
Right. It could very well be that, and just so long as there's an understanding when you read the code that the planning board will review architectural, elements. I mean, that's the whole idea of incorporating part of chapter 50 into chapter 170. It gives, the planning board's always had the power. It's just a confusing thing for somebody who doesn't know our code to say, well, what's this board for when you have that board?
Right.
So if we're in agreement that by taking it out, we remove that confusion, but we still give the planning board the authority to review architectural elements of the project, then I'm fine.
I guess the other question I would ask, and like I said, I'm just, I've looked at it, but I'm kind of reviewing now again, is it something where, is it possible that he was focused on making sure things that were supposed to be in there were in, or things that were supposed to be out were out, and he just didn't go back and hit all of these places where it's APRB? Because it's in here a lot.
Well, so chapter 50 is APRB.
Right.
So my understanding when we started this is we were getting rid of chapter 50 and taking the things we needed from it and putting it in the chapter we're planning in. That was my understanding. Carol's shaking her head yes.
Mm-hmm.
Pam's telling me yes. So I don't understand why chapter 50 still exists.
Why it still exists? Because we haven't made the revision yet, that's all.
Well,
But what I'm saying is this revision isn't taking it out. There's
It's still there.
22 pages here of chapter 50.
Right.
Well,
Let me give you guys an example. I want you to think about, because I don't think, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but I don't think any of us are business owners. Okay? And I've never been a business owner. Let me tell you one thing it says. It says, no parking space shall be more than 75 feet from a large deciduous tree. Now, how is that promoting business in the village? I don't even know what that means. So if I don't have a large deciduous tree on my property, does that mean I can't have a parking spot?
I don't have an answer for that.
Do you see what I mean? So he's doing a ton of work. Somebody's paying for it. And in my opinion, it's going in the ship is going in the wrong direction from where I thought it was going.
Well, as you,
So
I don't
maybe
know
we
if
should
I-
all agree to review this in detail before the next meeting.
absolutely.
And then I don't think we should bring Wes until we're in agreement.
To figure, right,
Agree.
I agree.
That's fine. I mean, I don't know if there'll be a need once we're in agreement, other than,
Well,
to
there's
say-
things from 50 that need to get into planning. But I like, my desire is for 50 to go away with the important things from 50 to get into planning. I thought that was the whole purpose of trying to streamline the process to bring business projects to the village.
yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, like, I'll give you another one. And I'm not trying, I don't expect everybody to work on the same schedule, and I had time to read it cover to cover and other people didn't. and we've talked about this. Colors shall be chosen from a commercial paint distributor's historic color palette and be approved by the Village of Victor Architectural Preservation Review Board. So let me tell you something. Here's an example. Verizon comes to Reed's office, and Reed is retiring and says, I'm selling my business. And that would be a great location for a Verizon store. It's got 10, 12 parking spots. You know, Verizon is a company that's actually doing well in a time when other of the economy, when other companies aren't. And they can't have their sign because their red doesn't meet this document. That's what I thought we were trying to get out of the code.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I realize that your point is to streamline and simplify, but I don't think, you know, on the other side of that issue, throwing it all out isn't the answer. So,
Well, I'm not saying throwing it all out, but if you have so McDonald's colors wouldn't meet the color palette. Verizon's colors don't meet the color palette. I mean, these are the things we need to think about when we make a rule.
yeah, I agree.
So, you know,
Well, talking about color palettes, when I looked at it, I read the highlighted green, highlighted turquoise, and so on, and then saw it all over the place in the document. And I still was not clear on exactly what it was, because I mean, I agree with Mike. I mean, I thought that most or all of 50 was going to go away and be incorporated in other places. From the colors scheme in this document, I couldn't tell what was going away, if anything, and what was staying, because I thought we had talked about a lot of it and said either it's going to go away entirely or it's going to be included someplace else. So, I mean, that would be the only thing I don't think we have to have Wes with us to discuss it, but I would like to know what he was thinking when he put up the colors, and what, you know, why it wasn't taken care of. I mean, what I was expecting was what we were going to end up with, what we had talked about, and I don't think this is what we had talked about.
Well,
And the colors didn't help me.
Yeah, some of it was confusing.
no, I agree with you, Bob. I kept my color key handy and I had to refer to it on numerous occasions going back. So, but my understanding is and again, it's just my understanding of the color key, is what's green, we moved into section 170 in 2018.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and if that's the case, then it's in there twice now, because we still
Right.
have section 50, or, you know, chapter 50. So I think there's some things that we moved that maybe we didn't put, that if that's true, maybe we didn't put enough effort into reviewing. And I think there's, I think the bigger umbrella is, do we want a chapter 50 in the book? So, because chapter 50 is titled Architecture Preservation Standards.
so going forward, what would you want to do? You want to individually scrutinize it like Mike did, and then at the next meeting, we talk through that and make sure we're in agreement of where we want to go? Or do you want to just have a workshop or something strictly on that?
Yeah, either one. I'm fine with either one.
You know, so we got lots of time to do what we got to do. I mean, we still should be doing our own, you know, research on it. Do you want to do a workshop? Do you think that's necessary or helpful, or? And we could do that I mean, how long you think that would take us? We could do it prior to the next meeting?
No, I don't think that's enough time.
Yeah.
I
So
think it would
we-
have to actually be, given the current COVID world, you're probably talking a meeting on an off Monday, like after the budget process.
into like probably the middle of February, right?
Beginning of March.
Yeah.
March.
So
Well, what do you think time-wise, you guys? Is that okay to everybody?
I think if we
Good for
plan for
me.
the second Monday in March,
Yeah, that we're not meeting otherwise.
it sounds far away and it's really not.
It's-
No.
Yeah. Yeah, January is pretty well.
Yeah. I'm sure the world will take another chapter in hell before we get there. And, that'll speed things up. So,
Well, that's a good suggestion.
and we bring Wes to the workshop.
Yeah,
Well, I think if we do a workshop, because that way, if we all agree on something, he can change it right there. We don't have to re-communicate it.
right.
Right, yeah.
And there's no question, he's not trying to impose his own will on us. He's just simply probably, for one thing, a lot of time elapsed over the holidays and that.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's a lot going on. And so he may have been a little confused as to what we actually did want. So,
Well, and because of the way we communicate, we lose there's a lot to be said for people talking in the same room. This
Yeah.
this technology's been available before COVID, and the world didn't live this way for a reason.
yeah,
So,
yeah, I agree. Well, thanks for bringing it up, Mike, because it's something we still need to keep moving on and address before we lose our focus on it.
yeah, and it's a good time too, because you're in theory, the paths should cross with a new code enforcement officer too, right? Like these two paths should come to a conclusion at roughly the same time.
Yeah,
So,
very good. Thanks for giving us that direction and suggestion. Anything else? Nothing going on with the zoning board right now, right?
not that I know of. I'm going to say no since my phone's not blowing up. But
They did get an email about attending training, just so you know.
You did?
No, I didn't.
They did.
Someone in my house did.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I was hoping we would use the 40 hours for training, but I talked to Diane and we're using the 40 hours for code enforcement, and the training, we'll figure out another place to find that money. We may use some of my own budget since I'm not using it, so.
Well, okay, so having done it for 15 years, that there is a plethora of free training to get 4 hours a year in. Now, I will tell you, because it's a bureaucracy, sometimes you have to take the same training twice because that's all that fits into your calendar.
Right.
But there's plenty of free training out there. I can tell you all about cow manure, wastewater. I mean, I've been to every training and they were free. So,
All right. Anybody else, trustee reports?
Real quick, you and I met last week and we had a discussion about how we can help move things forward with like the Dadris plan and what have you. We're not going to get any money from the state anytime next few years or beyond. But we would like to have JT come to our next meeting to talk about his plans for the area around the Village Inn. He's talked about making improvements there and see if we can't help him out. And I also talked to Kathy Rayburn a little bit, and we're going to try to get the group that we had working on that the downtown revitalization application get together and see if there's something in there that we can do right now. We're not gonna wait for the money, and it may be something small, but it'll at least be something to start with. So we're
Sounds
gonna,
good.
try to get going on that.
Did you have the full board when you met? I mean, obviously you're still missing one person, but
Right, but yes, everyone was there.
that's good. Good news.
And we had a lot of suggestions and some good ideas, so we're gonna try to move forward.
Appreciate that, Carol.
Yep.
Bob or Michelle, anything?
I have
Tree board
nothing.
got, yeah, tree board got scheduled for last night, but I wasn't able to make it because I had a family thing, so.
I'm pretty sure JT has been talking with Gene about their budget
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
wanting them to, get that in.
Yeah.
Which Diane may already know, I don't know. Bob, one thing I was thinking of that you responded to was Babette's walking tour of the village. She sent that email out to us.
Right.
That sounds like a pretty interesting, nice project she's got going on.
It does seem like a nice project.
Am I not on Babette's email list? Because I didn't get anything from her.
You didn't?
No,
Um,
not the last stuff she sent out either, so
huh,
I'll forward it to you, Carol, and make sure that she has you on the list.
I'll get in touch with her.
yeah, just, Bob, can you describe it quickly?
What's the name of the code
It's
that,
a QR
QR.
code.
thank you.
Yeah,
She's proposing putting those codes on different buildings around the village. And that you would walk around and key on the code and then get a description, I think an audio of explaining the history and why that building was important and significant. Sort of a walking tour of the village that you do on your own.
Yeah,
It seemed like a great idea.
interesting.
yep, I think it's a real good idea, and there's different ways it could be, implemented and utilized. So you could do it as an event. You could just put it out there to the public to say, do at your own leisure, Obviously, we're not going to have a big event during the COVID situation here, but at some point, that could be an interesting activity for a group of people. So anything else anybody has, trustee wise?
I will have library the end of the month, which is like what, next week?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay, so for myself, we got Terry from the county. We are working on the hiring process. I looked over the applications today, and John Turner's going to look them over. Mike, I don't know if you're interested in being part of it, if you have the time.
Sure, if you need me, just let me know.
Okay. What we're looking to do is after he looks at these, so kind of shooting for the end of next week into the first week of February, probably before we could get the interviews done, to give those people who would be interviewed time to get the notice from us and respond back, and then, make sure we have a time available. We're thinking about doing them like on a Thursday or a Friday. That works good for John. He's more apt to be able to be back in town on a Thursday or a Friday. I think it's helpful to have him be part of the process. So I'll keep you posted, Mike, on the progress with that. Hopefully you can be part of it, all right?
Sounds good.
What else? So another thing I wanted to bring up is Chuck Kalari, our records keeper. Most of you know him. Chuck's just a one heck of a man is all I can say. And he's been a part of the village for a long time as our records archiver. He also does the same for the school district. And he's been really ill with just several setbacks in his health over the last year. And most recently, he was in the hospital. I don't know if he's still there, Pam, or if he's home now. But Pam reached out to Chuck's wife, Carol, and kind of got a bit of an update. And he finally actually called, I think, and talked to you, right, Pam?
Yep.
So he is feeling a little better and seems to be somewhat on the mend. And boy, that's the best news I've had in a long time. We want to make sure as a board, we wish him well. We should probably send him a card, I would think. And if anybody wants to talk to him, he probably would be happy to get a phone call. One last thing. Oh, Pam, one thing I just wanted to bring up before I forget it regarding, so the caucus is tomorrow night, the Citizens Caucus over at Town Hall we're having, and elections Tuesday, March 16th. What about, we haven't heard anything yet from the governor or anything about the March elections, have we?
Well, I was on that webinar last week
Okay,
and we're gonna treat them just like we did the ones in September.
okay,
So we're gonna be social distance. Everybody has to wear masks. I got some tape today to tape the floor 6 feet apart. And I'm gonna contact the election inspectors tomorrow to see if they're still willing to come and do it. As I said in the email to the candidates that I know about, you only need 35 signatures this year instead of 50. So that's probably a good thing. And ballots look a little different. They want the ballots set up a little different. I don't know why, but so if I hear anything else, I'll let you know. At the bottom of the petitions that I gave to Sean Sanderson today, it gives you the timeline where you can submit them to me, the beginning first day and last day in February that you can submit them to me. And other than that, everything still is going to look a lot like the September election that we had.
okay. And as far as absentee ballots, people who want to vote by mail,
Yep.
will you have them? How will they get the ballots and so forth?
So I always have a list from the county, and those are mostly people that are permanently absentee ballot voters. You know, people that are in nursing homes or whatever. So I get a list from the county. And then, as I said in the email to you guys, if you want to encourage the people you are talking to sign, if they want to do absentees, I can give you some applications. They can get them to me. I ordered extra absentee ballots from Williamson Law this year, so I've got plenty to send out, and then we just go from there.
That sounds good. And I think we should probably put something out on the Facebook page
Yeah.
and the website at least a couple of times.
Yeah, definitely. After we know, who's running, and we'll get the date out there, and yeah, we'll definitely, it doesn't hurt.
And I appreciate all the information you got from that webinar.
Yep.
Is there a date that absentee ballots have to be requested by?
Actually, like the day before in person. But it's just enough time for them to get them back to me. That's all. So if they got to fill out an application, then I've got to mail the ballot to them, right? So I get the application, the application and mail the ballot to them. They've got to get it back to me before the election day. So it's usually a good, 3 week, 2 week.
Okay. So ballot has to return by
Election day.
election day.
Yep.
What if somebody came in person to get an absentee ballot like the day before?
I would have them fill out an application, and then I would give them the ballot. They can fill it out here and just hand it back to me.
Okay. How does that going to work with our office being closed?
I will let them know. I mean, all they gotta
I
do-
just don't want to be accused of stifling anybody's
No,
vote.
and the phone, okay, the instructions are on the door. All they gotta do is call.
Okay,
It's not like nobody's in here. It's just that it's a lot, there's a lot of activity, water billing time, a lot.
okay.
Yeah, it's a good point, Mike, and probably that same information about the door being, closed during COVID, so it can go out on the website and Facebook. And
So, since we're talking about that, I appreciate that you let us lock the doors. I think when we first talked about it, it was only for the month of January, because that's when the billing is. Once February 1st hit, there's a lot less activity, but things aren't any better. So the longer we can keep them closed, the better for us, I guess, because the three of us are in here wearing masks all day now. And, it's just so, I mean, it's definitely up to you guys. If you feel like we should, we're gonna have to open that day, you know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Yeah, I would just say, because the elections are so goofy, I would open them up when, after petitions are due. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? So then you've got your ballot,
yeah,
and then where you should be a little slower from
definitely.
water bills. So you only have people coming in with a purpose
Yeah.
rather than, yeah.
all right. I think that's all I've got for tonight. Reed, are you there?
I'm here. I
Thanks,
don't have anything. Thank you.
thanks for listening all night. One thing from Reed, the letters did go out to residents on Woodworth regarding the border issue and the encroachment issue over there. So appreciate that, Reed.
Of course.
So if nobody has any other business tonight, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mike,
Second, it.
second by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thanks, Pam. Thanks, everybody.
Be well, everybody.
Okay.
Have a good
See you
night.
tomorrow night.
Yeah, tomorrow night.
Yep.
All right.